The top 5 British Army commanders. For centuries, Britain has been involved in armed conflicts all over the world. From the development of a professional army during the English Civil Wars, through the expansion of their empire, which saw them fighting in many campaigns to increase their political influence and help develop trade, and their major involvement in the 2 World Wars, resulting in a rich military heritage which has produced some exceptional army commanders. Here we take a look at 5 of the greatest British Army commanders in reverse order. Number 5. Field Marshal Montgomery. Many colleagues found Montgomery arrogant, unpleasant and disagreeable. However, he excelled at strategic, operational and logistical planning. He also believed in ensuring that his men were disciplined, well trained and well equipped. He first saw action in the First World War, where he was critical of some British generals' willingness to accept high casualties during a battle. On the outbreak of the Second World War, Montgomery was sent to France with the British Expeditionary Force, where he predicted that the operation would be a disaster, and trained his troops accordingly for a tactical retreat, which proved essential during the evacuation to Dunkirk. In 1942, he was appointed commander of the 8th Army in the Western Desert. Montgomery spent the first 2 months building up his strength and restoring his army's flagging morale, ensuring they were properly trained and re-equipped. Montgomery then organised an effective defence of El Alamein, where he defeated the German and Italian forces led by General Erwin Rommel on October 1942, the first major Allied land victory of the war. This was followed by the pursuit of the Axis forces along the North African coast to Tunis. Following the victory in North Africa, he then commanded the 8th Army during the Allied invasions of Sicily and then Italy. He went on to command all the Allied ground forces during the Battle of Normandy from D-Day until the 1st of September 1944. He then continued to command the 21st Army Group for the rest of the Northwest Europe campaign, including his failed attempt to cross the Rhine during Operation Market Garden. Montgomery also commanded the Northern Shoulder during the Battle of the Bulge. During the war's closing stages, Montgomery's forces took part in capturing the Ruhr and much of northwestern Germany. Montgomery accepted the surrender of the German forces in northwestern Europe on May the 4th, 1945. Number 4. Oliver Cromwell. A natural commander with no formal military training who helped Parliament win the English Civil Wars. He rose from leading a single cavalry troop to commanding the entire Parliamentarian Army's cavalry, then becoming Commander-in-Chief and then Lord Protector. He was a thorough tactical planner and firmly believed in the proper recruitment, training and welfare of his men. Unusually for the period, he promoted his men based on their ability and character rather than their social status. Cromwell soon distinguished himself in battle, leading his troop in the key victory in 1642 at the Battle of Edge Hill, and by 1644 he had risen to the rank of Lieutenant General. In 1645, Parliament rebuilt its army, with Cromwell being one of the key men involved in its planning, development and training. Sir Thomas Fairfax was given command of the new model army, with Cromwell commanding the cavalry. Cromwell formed them into a well-trained and highly disciplined force, who were instrumental in the decisive parliamentarian victory at the Battle of Naseby. Following the parliamentarian victory, Cromwell was among the leading negotiators attempting to reach a settlement with the Royalists. However, these negotiations collapsed, leading to the start of the Second English Civil War in 1648, which the parliamentarians won relatively quickly and easily. Cromwell then became one of the signatories to the document that resulted in the beheading of Charles I in January 1649. However, the Royalists again regrouped and signed a treaty with the Catholics in Ireland. This resulted in Cromwell controversially leading a bloody invasion of Ireland in August 1649, where his men killed Royalist soldiers and civilians in Drogheda and Wexford. The Irish surrendered in 1652, resulting in all Catholic-owned land being confiscated and given to Protestant Scottish and English settlers, leading to a long period of suffering and poverty for the Irish Catholic people. Cromwell returned to England in 1650 after the Scots had proclaimed as king Charles II, son of Charles I. Cromwell won the military campaign against the Scots, which culminated in a decisive victory at Dundee. Parliament was reformed in 1651, where Cromwell sought to establish a united government over England, Scotland and Ireland. When he was opposed, he disbanded Parliament and drafted a new constitution, making him Lord Protector for life. Number 3. William Slim. William Slim is best known for commanding the British 14th Army in Burma, and is considered by many historians to be Britain's finest general during the Second World War. Slim was an experienced soldier who had served on the Western Front and in the Indian Army. He believed in the importance of training his troops and had a good understanding of jungle warfare and the Japanese army. In March 1942, Lieutenant General Slim was appointed commander of Burma Corps. They were forced to retreat 900 miles from Burma to India after being attacked by the Japanese, whose tactics were far more suitable in the Burmese jungle. Slim then took command of 14 Corps and began to train them to take on the Japanese. The focus of this training was off-road mobility, with the emphasis on lighter equipment and the increased use of mules and air transport. Slim trained his troops to form defensive boxes and to be resupplied by the air if they were surrounded or outflanked by the Japanese. He ensured that his troops received good medical care and airlifted his wounded to hospitals in India, believing that they would fight better if they knew that they would receive good medical care. Slim increased patrolling activities and night training to help his troops lose their fear of fighting in the jungle. On receiving intelligence that the Japanese army in Burma had doubled its strength and were going to invade India in March 1944, Slim decided to conduct a defensive campaign to break the Japanese before launching his offensive into Burma. During the ensuing battles of Imphal and Kohima, Slim ordered his men to hold their ground and forbade them to retreat, while they were supplied from the air. As a result, they successfully repelled the Japanese invasion, with the Japanese losing over 60,000 men, and they retreated in July 1944. Slim then drove the Japanese south. He continued to advance throughout the monsoon while continuing to be resupplied from the air. In 1945, after fierce fighting, he captured Burma's second city, Mandalay, with Rangoon, the Burmese capital, taken in May 1945. After a combined attack by Slim's ground troops, paratroopers and a seaborne invasion, bringing a successful end to the Burma campaign. Number 2. The Duke of Marlborough. General John Churchill, the first Duke of Marlborough, is considered by some eminent military historians to be Britain's finest ever army commander. He possessed many qualities of a great military commander, including courage, imagination, common sense, and self-control. He was able to effectively cooperate with his allies. His talent for organisational and logistical planning enabled him to manoeuvre his forces to bring his enemies to battle, and was then able to react quickly and decisively as the tactical situation developed. He also took care to ensure the welfare of his troops, and as a result was able to gain their trust and confidence, earning the nickname of Corporal John. Churchill joined the Foot Guards in 1667 and rose steadily through the ranks. As second in command at the Battle of Sedgemoor, defeating the Monmouth Rebellion in 1685, he helped James II to secure the English throne. However, he was a leading figure in the military coup that led to James being deposed during the Glorious Revolution of 1688, leading to the accession of William III. As a reward, he was promoted to Lieutenant General and given the title Earl of Marlborough. Although, due to William's lack of trust, he only saw 3 years active service in the 9 Years' War from 1688 to 1697 against the French. However, it was not until the accession of Queen Anne in 1702 that Marlborough's future was secured, with his wife being one of Anne's attendants at court. In 1701, a dispute between the Bourbon king Louis XVI of France and the Austrian Habsburg Holy Roman Emperor Leopold I began the War of Spanish Succession for control of the balance of power in Europe. Churchill was appointed to command the Allied forces in the Low Countries, during which he achieved some significant victories over the French, including Blenheim in 1704, Ramillies in 1706, Oudenarde in 1708, and Malplaquet in 1709. These victories altered the balance of power in Europe in Britain's favour. However, his wife's increasingly tempestuous relationship with the Queen resulted in her being dismissed from court and contributed to his military demise. When he became caught between the political fighting of the Tory and Whig factions, Marlborough was forced from office and went into self-imposed exile, although he was restored to favour under George I. Number 1. The Duke of Wellington. Field Marshal Arthur Wellesley, the first Duke of Wellington, is one of Britain's most famous military commanders. He is regarded as one of the world's greatest ever defensive commanders. However, he could be aggressive and bold when the opportunity arose. He was adept at tactical, strategic and logistical planning, and skilled at reading the typography of a battlefield, taking advantage of its natural features, such as deploying his troops on the reverse slope of a ridge or getting them to lay down to help protect them from enemy artillery fire. He was also cool, calm and measured, even in the heat of battle, serving first in Flanders, where he began to gain military experience, then in India, where he won his first major victory at Assaye on the 23rd of September 1803. In 1807, he served at the Second Battle of Copenhagen, the British bombardment of the Danish capital, which resulted in the surrender of the Danish fleet, before being promoted to Lieutenant General and sent to Portugal, where he used the Portuguese mountains to conduct a defensive campaign against the French, with logistical support from the Royal Navy. During the Peninsular War, Wellington achieved many successes against a series of French marshals. These included the battles of Talavera, Bazacu and Salamanca. Advancing back into Spain in May 1813, Wellington destroyed the French army at the Battle of Vittoria. Following this victory, he was promoted to Field Marshal, which was followed by his advance into France. After Napoleon's abdication in 1814, he was awarded the title the Duke of Wellington. When Napoleon returned to power in February 1815, Wellington assumed command of the Anglo-Allied armies. At the Battle of Waterloo on June 18, 1815, Wellington formed a defensive position on a ridge at Mount St. Jean, and with the aid of the fortified farm buildings of Hougoumont and Halle-Saint, and with the help of the Prussians commanded by Field Marshal von Blücher, defeated Napoleon to finally end the Napoleonic Wars. Wellington was appointed Commander-in-Chief of the British Army on January the 22nd, 1827. However, he had become an increasingly prominent member of the Tory party, and in 1828 he resigned as Commander-in-Chief and became the British Prime Minister.